Hi everybody, welcome back to OC Aviary today, where it feels like we've not been back in the bird room for absolutely ages, and there's an awful lot to show you around and update you on. We've had quite a good breeding season with most of the native birds. We've got our native finches, our softbills, and we've even got a pair of turtle doves, haven't we? So what I'm going to do today is give you a whole tour around the full bird keeping setup here at OC Aviary. We've got the bird room, we've got the aviaries, and of course we've got our conservation breeding aviaries which house our endangered species as well. So first off, let me introduce you to my main bird room. We built this bird room nearly 3 years ago now, and this is the sort of main headquarters, if you like, of where I keep most of the birds and where most of the birds are housed. It's 15 feet long, it's 12 feet wide, and I'm not quite sure how tall it is, but it's quite tall. So it's a real sort of state-of-the-art thing that it took a long time to build, a long time to design. And I've just tried to make sure that everything in there is the absolute top notch. The best of what I can get is in here. So let's go in here first and take a look around. So it's the main bird room that is primarily designed to house and breed many different species of finches, and it can house species of finches from all over the world. We've actually got all of the walls insulated, we've got quite a good airflow system in here, so should I decide that I want to keep exotic species, for example, then it's perfect for that and will adapt quite readily. But of course we have native finches, that is where my passion lies. So keeping the native European finches is actually about keeping it whatever it's like outside. So these are what it's like, and the first thing I want to show you actually is something that if you're wanting to build a bird room, I can't recommend enough. It might seem rather trivial, but it's actually just having a sink. I know that might sound a little bit silly, but what we've got here is a stainless steel sink and actually a stainless steel medicine cabinet as well, with a little fridge under here. This is so important and is used every single day by myself when we're looking after the birds. We've got the sink, of course, so that we can have some water in here. We've got a drainage system underneath, and we've also got the sink so we can keep things refrigerated. So when I've got egg food, for example, on the go when we're rearing chicks, the egg food is stored in there outside of when it's actually being fed to the birds. Being able to wash all of the equipment in here, rinse everything down, is really practical, and having a medicine cabinet as well is just practical, because when I have to have supplements and medication, I want to make it all nice, neat and tidy, and having that in the bird room really does help. So that's the first thing. If you are looking to build a new bird room, or maybe looking to change your bird room about and get some ideas, I can't recommend enough getting a sink. So next up then are my aluminium flight cages. So I've loved having these aluminium flight cages over the past couple of years. These are bespoke, these are made by San Bird Products, if you didn't know, and these are just fantastic because what they are is something really practical for me to house pretty much every single bird species I have if I need to bring them indoors for whatever reason, whether that be bad weather, cold winter, avian flu restrictions. Then these are really practical, even if it's a temporary housing because birds can't be kept outside for whatever reason. They work really well. So these are 6 feet long, each cage is 3 feet tall and 2 feet wide, and they've of course got dividers as well, so we can separate these out into smaller cages should we need, or even if it's just in the case of putting a divider in whilst we're cleaning out or we're trying to catch something out of here. So first off then, in the top cage we've got my pair of European hawfinches. So this is the adult pair of birds that bred for me this past breeding season. They've produced one single chick that we'll take a close look at in a minute, and they're doing really well. So actually the hawfinches are kind of coming through the other side of the molt now, which is really quite pleasing in all honesty. They're coming through that other side of the molt. They've replenished most of their feathers with a couple of pins I think left on the head, but for the most part they've pretty much finished now, which is quite nice. So they'll be in a good position when the temperatures do drop really quite cold in the winter. Then behind me here, we've got a flight cage with my North Dutch frill canaries in. So that again, that is all the North Dutch. We had a little bit of a weird year with it, to be honest with you, with the North Dutch frills. It started quite well, but one of the hens decided to start plucking the chicks, and when that happens, I stopped that hen from having more chicks, because the last thing I want is chicks that are in a sort of a worse condition than they should be because of the parent birds. So it ended up where after one round and we had a parent bullying some chicks, I had to separate them and sort of left them alone then, and we kind of stopped breeding them after the first round. But we've still got about 10 or so, a mix of adult birds in there and juvenile birds. They're all looking really quite good. They started molting quite early, in all honesty, towards the end of July. So we're now 6 weeks later or so, and most of them have replenished their feathers with just a couple of pins around the face. And of course, they're getting daily baths as well to keep their feathers nice and well maintained. You get a nice plumage. And of course, with the frill canaries, because of how light and soft that feather is, it's absolutely vital to give them these baths so the feather's in a nice, good condition. Now the flight behind me is empty for the moment, just because I've had to take some of the lighting down which was behind that, so I thought I'm not putting any birds in there for the moment. But what we've got in here is actually just a couple of, let's say, odd birds and spare birds. So we've actually got 2 mules in here. We've got a normal Siskin mule off of a Norwich canary, and we have a clear Siskin mule as well, which is a lovely bird. So they're really in sort of mid-molt at the moment. There's also a Norwich canary in there as well with the 3, but I'm putting loads of baths on for them to really help them come through the molt nicely. They started molting a little bit later, but they're doing really well. And of course, in the flight cages particularly, I fill it full of natural branches to help keep the birds exercising, moving their feet, moving their wings, trying to land at different angles and stuff. It's all important for the muscle development of these birds to keep them fit, happy and healthy. So then here across the back wall, I've got my UPVC breeding cages. We've got 2 blocks of them, and they're fantastic for, well, to be honest with you, most of the birds that I'm going to keep. A lot of the native finches they're perfect for, and I've had them actually bespoke made. So these are particularly large. I had them made larger than sort of the standard and the let's say minimum requirements that most people go for. So these are actually 18 inches tall, 18 inches deep and 6 feet long. So that's a 6 foot block. That's a 6 foot block, and they've got dividers every 2 feet, just when I need to section birds out to maybe catch them up, or we have to divide a bird if they're being aggressive or whatever it is. But these are immensely practical and something I've absolutely loved to have. Again, we've just started sort of finishing the breeding season and beginning the molt, so I've deep cleaned all of these cages, although as you might be able to see, the birds have messed them up within about 3 days. So they don't look all as clean as they probably were, but I promise you they are clean. I've disinfected them and had some of them out even jet washing, and they're fantastic, really easy to maintain. They get enough nice load of colour to them as well, and it just really helps the birds stand out and pop as well, particularly with the black cage front. So what we're housing in here then, first off up the top, we have the little bird we spoke about earlier. This is my young male European hawfinch. So this is the chick from the pair that are in the aluminium flight cages. He's doing fantastic. He's about, I don't know, 120 days old now, something like that, and he's really starting to come through the molt. So he's not quite there yet. We're still waiting for him to get that sort of golden sheen over his head, but for the most part he's replaced a lot of the feathers on his chest, so a nice sort of a purpley colour through the chest, which is quite nice. I mean, he's absolutely massive, by the way. It's larger than his father and his mother, so that's an absolute beast of a hawfinch. So super pleased to have bred him. He's looking fantastic. We've got our greenfinches as well, so we've actually got the adult greenfinches here. We've got my adult cockbirds and my adult hens. So these are the birds that we've bred the young birds off. And then if I just turn the camera here, we've got 3 rows of juvenile greenfinches. So I think we've bred 16, 17 greenfinches this year, which has been quite a good year in all honesty, particularly with the exhibition birds. They're not always as productive as the sort of smaller types because these are exhibition birds and they are much larger, but they are doing really well. We've got a mix of ages, so we've got some that are a little bit older. They're probably about 4.5 months old now, and then we've got some that are only 6 weeks old. So they're all molting through, but they're all looking well, other than the fact there's feathers everywhere. And we've got some real nice mix of quality in there. Some of the birds that I was really keen to breed off that have won a lot for me did produce for us this year, so we've got a nice genetic representation in there, and I only think these young birds will get better as time goes on, as they fill out and they replenish all of their feathers. And then finally, the third block of cages in here is this big block here. So this is an 8-foot long block, by the way. This is sort of the longest set of cages that I've got. These are a little bit smaller, but they're actually more designed for canaries and the smaller finch species, because I have found in previous years that actually having, like, let's say, lesser red poles that are in them at the moment in the larger cages can sometimes, I think, make them a little bit more prone to being spooked and a little bit timid. I think they like some of that shelteredness and that privacy sometimes. So what we've got here then is all the juvenile red poles, and actually the adult red poles as well. So on the top 2 rows, we've got our young birds we've bred this year. We've bred 22, which is really nice, from 6 pairs and a quadruple. They've all done really quite well, and I'm really quite impressed with the quality that I'm seeing so far. And bearing in mind, we're only in September, a lot of these birds have not quite finished molting yet they are already looking quite nice, and I'm hoping I might be able to get some on the show bench at the Stafford National Exhibition on the 5th of October. So fingers crossed they will fill out nicely by then. But the birds are looking fantastic. They've got some lovely markings on some of the older, lesser red poles that we've bred. And then down here in the second row is the chicks that are still sort of in nest feather or earlier in the molting stage. So we've got some of, let's say, the 4-month-old red poles and anything about 2 months old. So they're all doing fantastic. We've had them on red colour food that I'll give them 3 days per week, and that's just bringing a nice bit of colour out in them. It's helping sort of darken and enhance those browns in them. It's giving them the nice red cap. And even for the adult birds now, we've got our adult hens and our adult cockbirds down there. They're on the red as well, to get that nice pink flush through on the chest. But they're all doing fantastic. What you might notice is I don't have natural perches in these cages or these cages, and the reason for that is quite simple, is that I've been putting the wooden perches on the fronts of the flights and the cages because they seem to be a lot better for them whilst they're molting, and they're much easier to clean than natural perches. So that's the whole idea of it. It's only for the short period whilst the birds are molting. As soon as they finish molting, natural perches back in all of the cages. But it's just like I say, for this moment in time, for the birds' welfare and their health, the best thing is how can I keep it as clean as possible, and the man-made wooden perches seem to be the answer to that. And then, of course, outside we've got the bearded tits in the outdoor aviary. Now, we built this aviary about 4 years ago or so now, and initially this was an aviary that was designed to be quite functional. It was for molting out birds, but also breeding some of the smaller species, whether that even be greenfinches, twites, red poles, or things like that. But what I decided to do this year with it, instead of having it as loads of little aviaries, take all the dividers out and make it one big aviary. So we took the dividers out, one big aviary that's 10 foot long. We've planted it, there's bamboo in there, there's all sorts of plants growing. We put the walls up with fake coconut fibre. We've got wood chips on the floors. We've even got a little stream in there, and that is housing our pair of softbills, which are bearded tits, and they are fantastic. So we've had a very successful year with them, particularly considering they're a young pair. We've bred 7 youngsters, and we could quite possibly have had more if certain things had gone our way. And they've done absolutely fantastic. And actually the most recent episode that I put out prior to this one, you might have seen that. So we had a really good year with them, and if you haven't watched that episode, go and watch it after this one, because it really is nice to see the development of the pair. So they're doing really well, and it's lovely to encourage the natural behaviours in them as well, by having the plants in there, by having natural forage, by having a stream in there. So they've been fantastic, and I'm really hoping that I'll be able to get in a couple of unrelated birds this winter and this autumn to pair up the youngsters. So hopefully we might have a couple of pairs for next season. Then finally, these are my conservation aviary. So this is where we house all of the endangered birds we're working with for the Keep It Wild Trust charity. So as many of you know, over the past 2 years now, I've been working quite closely with Twites in a breeding programme. So what we have right here is, first off, a giant aviary across the back. This is 6 metres long, and at the moment, all of the twites are housed in here. All of the adult birds are housed in here for the molt. So this is just quite ideal. They want to be all together as a flock when molting. It really helps seem to settle them down and also allow them to interact and keep active. And then of course across this whole back wall we have all of the breeding aviaries. Now the thing is, although it is September and most of the twites have moved in here to molt, we have still got some of them that haven't yet finished breeding. And that's in this aviary here. So what we have is a pair of 2024 bred twites, 2 birds I bred last season. And they've had a really weird season. They've laid multiple clutches of eggs, I think 3 or 4 clutches of 5 now. And they've just constantly had most of them being fertile. So other than maybe 1 or 2 eggs that have been fertile per clutch, the rest have been clear. And I'm not 100% sure why that is. The lighting isn't an issue, the health of the birds isn't an issue. They've just been really weird. So it's ended up where for most of the year I've been taking the odd chick that's hatched and fostering it with another nest of birds that have been rearing at a similar point at that time. And that's really helped sort of increase the chances and how productive the birds have been. But now what's happened is we had a hen only a couple of weeks ago further down who laid a clutch of 5 eggs and then sadly started to go downhill, and this was because she'd pulled the calcium from her bones and put it into the eggshells and therefore made herself weak. Now I can say, by the way, she has recovered and she's in the big communal aviary, she's absolutely fine. But we had 5 eggs that were fertile, or theoretically fertile, she'd been producing fertile eggs all year, that were viable and needed to go somewhere. And she was sat on a nest of 6 infertile eggs. So, you know, put 2 and 2 together, I thought there's an opportunity here to get these chicks actually reared and hopefully get a couple more out for the season. So I swapped the eggs, we've popped the eggs from the hen that injured herself into nest site, and now we're about 20 days later, something like that, and there is 4 chicks in that nest, almost completely fully feathered, and the pair are doing a fantastic job. So this is the first time that they've reared a full clutch, obviously because they've had mostly clear eggs all year, and they're looking really good. So that is going to possibly be the last nest of twites for the year in September. So here we actually have a number of the young twites we've bred. So this is just a couple of the juveniles. So what I have then is these cages. So these are called MLF cages. They're a new brand of cages that you might have seen at the Stafford or Newark bird shows. I picked up a block in the spring, built it up, and then what we've been doing ever since is housing some of the juvenile twites we've bred this year in here. Now, ideally, I would pop them in an aviary, leave them in the aviary to molt, and that's generally better for them. It helps with muscle development. It's generally better for the birds to be in an aviary. However, what's basically happened with them is I've found out this year and last year is that the young twites seem to be awfully prone to illness, and what that's basically coming from and spouting from is the birds eating their own feces and spoilt food. Now, no matter how many times you clean a cage, there's still always going to be droppings going through, or possibly a little bit of spoilt food on the floor there, because things do go off quite quickly, particularly if it's like a moistury egg food. They can go off when you add different vegetables in there. But equally, you know, there's even in flights, they can pick up all sorts of things, and you can constantly clean it, and it's really difficult to manage. So actually having them in these cages has been fantastic, because what it's given me the opportunity to do is have a mesh panel at the bottom, so all of the mess drops straight through, and then a pull-out drawer at the base that I can clean every single day really easy with just a scraper and some disinfectant. So that's worked really well and has massively increased the survival rate of the young twite, and it's just been going really well. And then, you know what, once I've done with these cages, I can either flat pack them or I can give them a hose down, give them a scrub and a disinfect, and they will be as good as new. So really, really pleased with that. And as you can probably tell, they've also got lights installed, so it's going to help me see the birds a little bit better if I've got them in somewhere a little bit darker. Twites aren't the only thing we have down here at the conservation aviaries either. A number of people have been messaging me over the past couple of months going, Ollie, can we get an update on this pair of birds? And yes, of course we can. So in here as well, we have a pair of European European turtle doves. So these are globally an endangered bird. We have to have A10 or Article 10 certificates for every single bird here in the turtle doves because they are a CITES registered species. So we have a pair of them. Now, sadly, the reason you haven't had an update on them is because there's not been a lot to report. They're a young pair. They were bred last August, so actually they've only really just turned 12 months old. So I don't think they've been particularly mature enough this spring and the summer to really have a good attempt at breeding. Don't get me wrong, they've been building a couple of nests in here on the platforms, and they did actually lay one single egg in, I think it was May time. Of course, that egg wasn't viable because they decided to lay it off the perch, which you often find can happen with young birds that make these errors. I think they often think they're going to the toilet with something rather large rather than laying an egg. So that did happen this year. But the point is, we've still got the pair of European turtle doves. They're looking fantastic. They've actually pretty much almost finished molting. So we'll see how they get on, of course, over the winter, which I'm sure will go quite smoothly for them. And they're quite a big, robust bird. So comparatively to a twide, to something that's quite delicate and weighs 15 grams, the turtle doves should be just fine. But I'm hoping that next year we will have more success from the turtle doves. And hey, who knows, we might bring some more pairs in. So that is all from down here at the Conservation Aviaries. I really hope you've enjoyed the tour around everything today. It's been a while since we've done this sort of thing. I wanted to show you basically where we're at and super cool stuff we're going to be doing soon. And all going well, I'll announce some details once it's done, but I'm going to have some really, really cool stuff as well happening soon, including a fantastic international trip, but I'll let you know as soon as I get more details confirmed. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm going to bring you guys, of course, on the way with me as well. And that's all bird things as well. This is like top level stuff that I've wanted to do since I was a kid. But yeah, that's it from me, everyone. Really hope you've all enjoyed it today. So if you'd like to see more from OC Aviary, make sure to subscribe down below, smash a like on this video, and check out our other social media pages, Instagram, Facebook and TikTok, for daily updates and behind the scenes footage of all of our birds. So thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.